Okay, so I want to talk about how I still don't want an autistic doctor. Okay, so what I'm talking about is like there's this show called The Good Doctor. Okay, and it's about this autistic doctor. Okay, and I just feel like that's like autistic propaganda. Okay, um, because I don't, I mean, that seems to be the agenda. Okay, I don't want an autistic doctor. Like, would I, necessarily, if I got an autistic doctor, would I necessarily like walk out the room? Not necessarily, but it's definitely not a priority or a preference. And I would avoid them if I could because they're autistic. Um, there's this thing where, like, when you're autistic, your social intelligence is kind of skewed, and that's really important. That's like a big factor about being a doctor. A lot of times it seems like doctors lack sort of social graces already. So then to add something more onto that, it's just being autistic makes social navigation more challenging, and that's a very important component or factor in being diagnosing people. The big part of being the seeing a doctor is socializing and communicating. And if autistic people are missing this sort of social depth and nuance and that type of thing, that's going to impede them in being a sort of ideal doctor. Okay, I don't see why like autistic people can excel in so many professions. I don't see why being a doctor has to be one just because it's one of those sort of idealized, hyped professions. And then that goes back to like this propaganda thing. It's like, I know it reminds me of the whole trans thing. Like when trans people are like, trans women are women. If trans women are women so much, so significantly, if that's, then stop saying trans women. Just say women. If trans women are such trans women, it's like trans women only, it's like they don't like when you distinguish them. Like, don't they don't like when you distinguish them, but they can distinguish themselves. Like they've been granted they've self-authorized themselves to be this, you know, distinguisher, right? When it's convenient, it's trans women, but when they want to be women, it's just women. But when we're like saying, "Oh, trans women," they're like, "Trans women are women." It's like this one-way distinguishing. It's like it's just like this similar thing here with this autism. It's like a lot of autistic people are sort of pushing this thing where it's like where there's nothing that you're typical, right? When you're divergent, you're atypical. But they only you can acknowledge when that you are atypical. Only you are allowed to do that. It's a self-authorization where like what's the point of like you're pushing that you're typical, that's what you're pushing. Like you see this backlash towards like different media presenting this sort of different types of autistic people. You guys want to, it's like you're only sanctioning this sort of, you know, certain type of autism, and then you gloss over the challenges that autism can present, even when everyone has different challenges. It's like, right, and or avoiding certain media if it's presenting autistic people in a certain way, this sort of full sort of kaleidoscope of people with autism. But like that doesn't make sense. Like you want to be recognized as this with this people with this, what would you say, like distinct traits or something like that, this distinct way, um, this distinct physiology, I guess, but you also don't want people to recognize it. Hmm. No, being autistic makes some things challenging for you. Being left-handed makes things challenging for people. Being shorter makes things challenging for people. Like, it's not a big deal, but it's like pretending. Um, you want us to pretend, sometimes aggressively, that there's like nothing to distinguish, that it doesn't matter in any way. Like, it's not making sense. Okay. Um, I like you can't, like, it just doesn't make sense. So no, I don't want an autistic doctor. I don't want any autistic person in a sort of job that requires a higher social intelligence. Why? A high social intelligence, right? There's multiple types of intelligence. There's so many professions and jobs where that wouldn't be an issue. A doctor is not um, one of them. Like, I don't know the terms, but are you atypical or are you not? Like, what's the point of the term if you're basically saying there's nothing? It doesn't matter. Then stop using the term autistic. If it's just this insignificant personality trait or something, or is it not